Alright guys, this is a quick tutorial on introducing Grasshopper into your design tools. So the first thing you're going to have to do is download Grasshopper. So you just go to grasshopper3d.com and you get the latest download. This is a beta software, so it's kind of constantly updating. Used to be every month to a week they were updating. Now it's maybe more like every 3 or 4 months they'll notify you of a new download. You can also see that there are tutorials on how to get started. I do recommend them. There's also some PDF primers that you can download that kind of walk you through everything step by step. So there's a lot of information right here on just the Grasshopper site, and there's a lot of good forums and whatnot to take a look at, along with galleries. So you want to spend some time here kind of looking around, poking around. And in fact, you're going to find with Grasshopper the best method is to go see if somebody's done something similar to what you're thinking about, and then you tweak it. You kind of use it as a sample example file to sample from. Other sites that you might want to look at is designreform.net. You're going to find here that there are a lot of things that they cover, from 3ds Max to CATIA, Grasshopper Illustrator, all these kind of things. It's a very high end. It doesn't get into many of the basics, but once you've learned the basics and kind of are growing in your knowledge of the various software, this is a great place that they're really kind of cutting edge on how to use architectural software. Another place, it's a little bit outdated, but with a couple of modifiers you can really use this. They go into kind of from basics, intermediate to advanced in Grasshopper and in Rhinoceros. I say dated because it's probably 3 or 4 years since they made these movies, and since Grasshopper is in beta, some of the menu structure will have changed. A couple of the components may have changed where they're located, but it's pretty easy to kind of get around that once you kind of change the way that you're thinking about, or at least the terminology. It happens right here. I think maths used to be called scalar, and sets used to be called logic or list or something. So once you kind of fix those two things in your head, you can use the digital toolbox really effectively, and it walks you through a bunch of videos from the beginnings to the end. So anyway, I recommend those two sites. There's plenty of videos online that you can see on Vimeo and YouTube, so you just kind of hunt. I always throw in Grasshopper 3D into my search results. That usually gets you past a lot of the kind of gunk on the internet. So anyway, alright, so back to Grasshopper. So once you load it, you'll see that you just have to go in and type Grasshopper in the command line, and then this blank canvas will show up. And this is the canvas that you're going to start pulling components. You're going to find that essentially you're creating almost like a circuit board. It's called visual scripting. And this circuit board has inputs and it has outputs. And in between are these operators. So it's a really kind of different way of thinking. So I'm just going to walk you through a couple of things, and just so we can kind of get started. The first thing I'll do is just kind of walk you through the menu structure. You have basic parameters, which hold kind of basic geometry. These you're going to use to kind of either target geometry that you're going to build in Rhino, and or make sense of some of the things that you're doing, so you know exactly kind of that this is a curve set or this is a point set. And then there are also some in the input. The ones that you're going to use a lot of are number sliders, These allow you to kind of range between a minimum value and a maximum value. And you can change whether it's kind of how many decimal places it goes to, whether it's just an integer, and whether it's even or odd numbers. You can kind of flip through that. So, and then of course the maximum range. So this allows you to kind of set up a series of parameters that you might want to effectively just change on the fly. And then the other one from here that you'll use a lot is this panel. And this panel, essentially you plug it into any of the output and it'll tell you what's coming out. So this one's pretty obvious, direct, 0.92 is coming out. But I'll use it some more in this introduction so you can kind of see what that does. So as you saw, I'm kind of pulling components. I'm clicking on them, pulling them down into the blank canvas as I use them. So we have parameters, and then we have math. So math, is basically any kind of algorithm that you're going to want to set up. And this looks pretty intimidating, but you'll see, you'll use a lot of these kind of divisions, multiplications, adding, subtracting. And then as you get more and more sophisticated, you might start to use your own functions and square roots and exponentials and stuff like that. Sets are basically, you'll find in Grasshopper that you're really just kind of controlling information and data, which in fact usually is geometry, to create a form in Rhino. So you'll need to kind of control the sets of information. And again, this looks intimidating and there's a lot going on here, but I'll walk you through some of it in the next few movies that kind of get you kind of introduced to the basics in each one of these. And just like in Rhino, where there's there's thousands of commands, you're going to find that there's about 25 to 30 that you use a lot. And then there'll be just this smaller group that you'll use, and you'll have to learn as you go. So it looks complex right now, but eventually it'll start settling down. And then we have geometry that just slowly grows in complexity. So we go from vector, which can be grids and whatnot, to actually directions and planes that you're working on. So just like here where I'm working on an XY plane, I can set up so that I'm either working on that XY plane or YZ or XZ, and so on and so forth. And then of course, vectors, we have points. So we can construct points, we can deconstruct points, we can do a lot of things with points. And then here we have the true vectors, which are the directions, X, Y, Z, and then so many things that you can kind of start to manipulate those vectors. And then we build up. It's just now we're doing curves, so we're getting into lines and circles and rectangles and ellipses and whatnot, polygons. And then splines, so any of the kind of splines that you can create in Rhino, you can create it here. And it's really a kind of good form to understand that, in fact, with anything that you can do in Rhino, more than likely, if there's a command in Rhino, there's usually a command in Grasshopper that does that exact same thing. And that's where it becomes really powerful, is that you're, instead of kind of doing and redoing a command to get kind of the design just right in Rhino, you're just connecting the dots to do that same operation, but then now you have control and you can edit a few things in Rhino, and it really does all of that stuff for you, like say a loft command. And then there's a bunch of other things with curves. You'll find in each of these different geometries, then there's ways of analyzing that geometry. So analyzing a curve, whenever you want to find its endpoints, you're going to go here and you're going to find the endpoint component, or deconstruct an arc, or find all its control points and start to manipulate those. So there's an analysis of each geometry, and then there's utilities that basically break it down, like explode it, or join it, or flip the curve, so it starts on one end and then ends on the other, or flips that to start on the reverse of that. extending curves, filleting, so on, offsetting, all those things. Surface, the same thing. I won't go through it again, but analysis, freeform, primitive, utilities, meshes, intersections. So you can start to find kind of a lot of things that you know, like how does the surface intersect with this curve line? Well, you'd go in here and you'd plug in a surface, plug in a curve, and you'd find that kind of resultant. So on and so forth. And then there's transform. So basically a move command, a scale, a rotate, all those kind of Euclidean transformations that you would do. All that happens here. And then we can group things and ungroup things. So that's the basics. You'll see that I have a few other things on my display. There's a lot of plugins that you can get for Grasshopper. This is a structural analysis tool. This one starts to do line weights. I've completely forgotten what this one does, and so there's a lot of other things that you'll start to, as you get more and more sophisticated in Grasshopper, you might start downloading a few other things.